The British manufacturer Allen & Heath are a unique brand in that many of their products tend to stick around for a very, very long time. The products we're looking at today are great examples of that. The Xone 24C mixer replaces the 23C, which launched all the way back in 2014, and the Xone K3 controller is the successor to the K1, which is equally long in the tooth. To be able to continue selling a single model of anything for over a decade in the fast-moving DJ market is really impressive. So today I'm asking, were these needed? And if so, what new stuff are they bringing to the table? My relationship with Allen & Heath is one of highs and lows. I've never shied away from the fact that I'm not a fan of their most enduring and popular product, the Xone 92. And so I think they've been loath to send me the Mark II version of that, which does make sense. Although they've made changes with the Mark II version, which will mean I like it more than the original, I'm still never going to love it. It's just not for me. But some of their products I'm really into. I thought the DB4 was a challenging but incredibly special mixer, and the Xone 96 remains a truly world-class club mixer, which I'm more than happy to use when I come across it. My last encounter with their more budget mixers was when I reviewed the Xone 23 for DJ Tech Tools in 2014, the year it launched. That was a very high quality mixer for the money, but I thought then, and still do, that it was a bit weird. The layout is strange, the routing is odd, and the number of inputs was very limited compared to its competition. But clearly the market disagreed with me, as it successfully stuck around for 12 more years, and if it wasn't selling, it would have been replaced long ago. There are two versions of their new affordable mixer, the 24 and the 24C. Street price is just under €400 for the 24, with the 24C coming in around €75 more. There isn't a whole lot of competition in that price range, with things like the new Mark Scratch, some of the more budget rotaries from the likes of Omnitronic, and Reloop have a few mixers under €500 too. Something worth noting is that both the 24 and 24C are what Allen & Heath call 2+1 channel mixers. You have the two main fully featured channels, switchable between line and phono and USB on the 24C, and then an extra channel which is switchable between mic and a line level aux input which can be queued, has a 2-band EQ and can be assigned to the filter. It's also usable as a third USB output on the 24C. For me, this is all a significant upgrade over the 23, which had just 2 line and 2 phono inputs, each with their own gain control, not a switch. Both versions are analog mixers, with the 24C adding in a USB audio interface, but the main signal path remains analog. I'll talk more about that interface later, but I'll say this right away, it is excellent, and my suggestion would be that everyone buys the 24C. You may not be a software DJ playing only vinyl or with standalone media players, but every DJ needs to record their sets at some point, and you won't find a better separate recorder or interface for the €75 you're paying for the upgrade here. From now on in this review, I'll only refer to the 24C, as that's the one I've been testing, but all of my points will apply to both, aside from the digital features. Many people are drawn to Xone mixers for their sound, and the 24C is absolutely no slouch in that department. Whether with vinyl or digital sources, the analog output is very pleasing with a ton of natural headroom. Crunchy digital distortion is just not a thing here. Some of the best mixers in the world today are digital, but at the more budget end of things, it's easy to hear the limitations of cheap digital and analog conversion, so good analog sound is something to be treasured. The phono preamps, I think, are the best I've heard in this price range, and they are well matched with the line inputs, which hasn't always been the case on Xone mixers in the past. The build quality is great too. Being so compact, the 24C is pretty light, but everything feels incredibly solid and well put together, with all metal construction, knotted pots and sturdy connectors. Speaking of size, it's very portable at less than 8 inches wide and around 12 inches deep. Very easy to transport in pretty much any DJ bag, but the controls don't feel cramped at all. Something I've often criticised older Xone mixers for was their crossfaders. The one on the original 92 is one of the primary reasons why I dislike that mixer so much, but the trend of late has been for them to come spec'd with mini Innofaders, which continues here, and that makes me very happy. It's not all roses. On my unit I found the actual cut-in distance to be a touch too long, but I'm sure that's something that can be tweaked either at the factory or by the end user later on. Connectivity here is just excellent for the money. Power is supplied by an external 12-volt power brick, which I won't complain about on a mixer of this size. Next to that on the 24C are the USB hookups, which are superb, with a USB-C port to connect to your computer or mobile device, and another 2 ports which work as a hub. They have a decent 7.5 watt power output too, so we'll have no issue juicing products like Phase or the K3, which we'll talk about later. There are the aforementioned switchable RCA line and phono inputs on the 2 main channels, and another pair of RCAs for the aux input on the 3rd. That's accompanied by a combo XLR and jack socket for the mic, always my preference. I generally do prefer multiple turntable ground points, as connecting 2 decks to one can be a faff, but I get why they have just one here in terms of space, and at least it's massive, so easy to tighten or loosen. There are 3 outputs, balanced XLRs for the master, and 2 pairs of unbalanced RCAs, one for booth with its own level control, and a record output. Again, for a mixer of this size, I won't criticise the lack of a balanced booth output, at least it has a booth output. One note though, both the booth and record outputs are clean feeds, so you won't hear the microphone through them. There's no FX loop for individual channels, but there is a master insert on RCAs, so you can easily connect up an effects unit to the master, or run out to an isolator or some other kind of signal processor. The unit is supplied with a pair of shorting plugs, which I recommend using if you have nothing on the insert, as otherwise if you accidentally engaged it with the button on the top panel, audio would cut off. Right, a quick demo of the features here on the 24C. It will be fairly brief because there's not a whole lot to talk about, but I'm not going to fault this straightforward mixer for being straightforward. I'm using it with Virtual DJ 2026. I've got the Xone K3 here, which is pre-mapped in Virtual DJ 2026. Really nice mapping. It's got EQs, it's got effects, it's got stems controls, it's got cues, all of that. So yeah, it just works really nicely, plug and play. That is connected into the USB hub on the rear of the 24C, and then the 24C itself is going into my MacBook Pro, and that means I'm using the audio interface inside the mixer for this as well. We'll start with the faders here. We've got the Innofader, which on my unit, I would like the cut-in distance to be a touch shorter. You know, it's an Innofader, it has a sharp cut there, and you can choose 3 positions for the curve control. But yeah, I'd just like that to be a little bit shorter. Maybe that's a running change that Alan and Heath could make as they go on with this, but it's still an Innofader, and therefore it does still rule, absolutely. And I'm really glad they went the extra mile to put a great fader in here. I think, of course, a lot of potential buyers of the 24C will not be interested in a crossfader, so you can disable it there if you want to, but yeah, I'm just glad it's there. The up fader's got a really nice curve on them. Perfect for those long blends. And a nice feel to them. Very, very happy with those. Then we come up to the cue. You can actually decide whether or not you want to have multiple cues assignable at once or do the auto switching like it's doing here. That's an option that you have. Not the longest travel buttons in the world, but they have a nice positive action to them. A nice clear illumination as well. Then we come up to the filter, you know, these legendary Xone filters. There's one of them here, but I don't mind that because you can assign it very easily and there's no popping or clicking when you do so. So it's very straightforward to just assign that to either channel or all 3 channels if you want to. One thing I will point out is that the mic is routed internally past the filter. So when I do the filter, my voice is not affected. Basically the mic goes straight through to the master. But if you have something on the aux or the USB, then that will be affected by the filter there. And yeah, it's just a great filter. They nailed these like 25 years ago or something. Adjustable resonance, high or low pass. It's a great filter all around. The EQs have quite an interesting kind of cut-off point curve to them. They've only got +6 dB boost on each. But it feels to me like maybe the mid is quite narrow. Like with the bass taken out, you're taking out a fair bit of the lower mids as well. And when you take out the mids, you're not taking out a whole lot of stuff. And then when you take out the top end, you're taking out some of that upper mid as well. I'm not saying that's bad or good, it's just that's how it sounds. And yeah, with that +6 boost, they are full kill, so if you take them all out, no signal. You can't get too out of control with the levels when you boost. So yeah, I'm overall liking the EQs. Over on the left-hand side, we've got this, you know, the mic USB or aux channel, this kind of 0.5 extra channel. That does have low and high EQ, +12 and -12 on those. And those do affect the mic. So you can hear my voice there, it gets a bit more boomy and everything else. So I like what they've done with the meters on here. You know, you've got this, just the signal LEDs for the channels, and including the 0.5 channel. And then you've got the master, and it does change for your Q split. Speaking of Q, we've got a level, we've got a Q master blend knob and a hardware split Q. All good there. And one thing that really makes this thing feel pro to me is the amount of headroom on it. Obviously, although it has a USB audio interface within it, it is also an analog mixer. And with that comes a degree of headroom that you don't get with digital mixers at this kind of price. So as you can see, I'm bringing in via the audio interface into this channel, I'm barely over 9 o'clock on that gain pot there. The headphone level, I'm barely at 9 o'clock, and that's kind of loud enough for me. Loads of gain left on the mic. There's just loads and loads of headroom on this thing, and that is something that makes a mixer feel pro to me. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that, but for me that's something that just kind of makes it gives it that pro sheen. I mean, obviously this thing is really well built and put together and everything else. It feels solid, you know, but that's another element that just makes this feel more than just a simple budget mixer. Obviously we have the booth and the master outputs, and then we've got the switch for the master insert. You can cut that in or out. There is a slight kind of change in the like not a pop or a click, but you can hear it engaging and disengaging, but that's not generally something you'd be turning on and off during a set anyway. You would have it turned on or turned off. It is a master insert. It's designed for, you know, it's not an on-the-fly effects unit kind of thing. You just leave it on or leave it off. But that's it. Very, very simple, very straightforward, but that's absolutely not a criticism of this device, because that is what it's supposed to be. In the demo, I mentioned changing how the Q buttons work, and that's pretty neat. You can do that while the mixer is powered on by holding the right combo of buttons down for a few seconds. Check the manual for more info. But there's also a way to enter the setup mode when you power the mixer on, and then on the 24C you can also adjust how the audio interface works, which we need to talk about now. Truth be told, I used to approach most products with my Serato goggles on. If an interface wasn't supported by Serato, it wasn't a whole lot of use to me. But times change, and now I'm as much a user of Algorithm's DJ Pro as I am Serato, and that, as with other software like Traktor, Virtual DJ and Rekordbox, is not hardware locked to a particular set of audio interfaces. So the first thing I did with the 24C was to connect DJ Pro, Traktor and Virtual DJ on my Mac, and everything worked entirely as expected. All the outputs and inputs were seen and performed great. But then I realized something else. The 24C interface is core audio compliant, which means no drivers are needed on Mac, and also it should work just as well on iOS devices. And indeed it was so, with the 24C connecting and working beautifully with DJ Pro on both my iPhone and my iPad. One really clever touch is that on the rear of the mixer you have switches for the two main channels, which route either the line or phono inputs to the USB for DVS, depending on what you need. So here I'm using the phono level output on the RP7 to send control signal to the iPad, but I could just as easily switch over to a line level source instead just by pushing that one button. Very elegant. The audio interface has more features up its sleeve too though. By booting the mixer in that setup mode, you can choose between 3 different modes. The default mode is stream, which puts the master output onto the first stereo pair. That means that software which doesn't support multi-channel audio like OBS will pick it up. That signal is post clean feed too, so the mic comes through. Then the other 2 stereo input pairs can still be used for DVS. Mode 2 is called DVS Pro, which shuffles things around so the master output goes to the third stereo pair instead. Then Mode 3 is called DAW, and that enables per channel post EQ but pre-fader recording, which could be used to great effect in the studio. Alan and Heath also point out in the manual that you could use the USB hub to create aggregate devices too. This interface is shockingly deep considering how simple it seems at first glance. Oh, and some of the controls send MIDI over that USB connection too, because why not? What I haven't really touched on is the sound quality of the interface yet, and that is excellent too. It's capable of 24-bit 96 kHz operation and sounds just as good as the line and phono inputs in use. Overall, I am super impressed by the Xone 24C. If you're a Serato user, it won't be for you, but if you use other DJ software or you don't use software at all, what you're getting is a great sounding mixer which offers a surprising amount of flexibility, sterling build quality and a super compact form factor at an extremely good value price. Fully recommended. We move on to the Xone K3 controller. What is it exactly? Well, it's a MIDI controller with 12 rotary pots, 30 buttons, 6 endless encoders, and 4 60mm faders. It has multiple layers too, and everything can be set up to the user's exact preferences using the updated controller editor software. It spits out standard MIDI protocol and is class compliant, so it's going to work without drivers on pretty much any platform, including iOS and Android. It has a street price of around €230, which is more than like a basic MIDI pad controller, but is in the ballpark of the Traktor X1 Mark III. That comes with onboard displays, which the K3 doesn't, but the K3 has a lot more controls and, in my opinion, is much more solidly built. It has a similar shape to that Traktor X1 and similar Native Instruments controllers, narrow but long front to back. It's not very tall, so you might want to use something like Alan and Heath's own case as a riser to bring it up to the height of a mixer if you'd prefer it like that. I'm a big fan of this form factor as it means the K3 will slot easily in between other bits of kit in a booth or can be put off to the side, and you don't need some unwieldy stand behind the mixer to mount it on. Connectivity is really interesting. They've switched out the old USB-B port for USB-C, which I'm happy to see, but the K3 also retains the proprietary X-Link ports from Alan and Heath, which means you can daisy chain multiple K3s with each other, as well as with K1s, K2s, and Xone mixers like the Xone 96, the PX5, and the DB series with regular Ethernet cables. This can get a little confusing as there are lots of potential configurations. For example, the X-Link port on the mixers will provide both power and data to a number of K3s, but the K3 itself doesn't pass through power to another K3 when powered via USB, whereas the K1 and the K2 did. This is all a bit of a change from older units, but there's good reason for that, which I will get to later. Previously, there were two models in the K lineup, the K1, which the K3 closely resembles, and the K2, which also included a USB audio interface. At this time, there's no sign of a replacement for the K2, which I know a lot of existing users feel some kind of way about. In my opinion, it makes much more sense a decade on to prioritize a unit without an interface, as so many more mixers found in venues already include one than they did in the 2010s. I'm coming at this review from two angles. Firstly, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the existing K-series audience who are probably using them with Traktor and or Ableton Live, and there are some small upgrades and one major one for those users. The chassis is now made of die-cast metal, not plastic, with the build quality overall being much more solid. The more minor updates include the addition of RGB LED feedback on the buttons, but users who have existing mappings for K1s or K2s should find those work pretty much the same. For those users, whether the update is worth it will be really on a case-by-case basis. It's not me. I've never been interested in the K-series before. Why? Well, many years ago I was deeply into custom MIDI mapping stuff. I would carry around MIDI fighters, pad controllers, and I even used Lima on an iPad. But in 2026, I'm almost exclusively using equipment which is already mapped for my software with dedicated marked controls. I do usually go in and make a few mapping tweaks of my own to make functions that I use often more accessible, but that's really the extent of it. And the main reason that people love the K-series, the ability to create deep, complex mappings using the controller editor, just doesn't appeal to me. Call me basic if you like, but these days I'm just a plug and play kind of guy. So when I first first tried the K3, I was fairly ambivalent about it. I went in and tried to create my own mapping in DJ Pro, but I couldn't make the cue point colors match the on-screen ones. Different controls needed a lot of adjustment, and I found, and still find, the controller editor software to be very powerful, but not very accessible. I could see the appeal, but it just wasn't for me. Then, after a little tip-off from Alan and Heath, I opened up Virtual DJ 2026, currently in early access, and boom, the software recognized it and applied its own dedicated mapping. This mapping works superbly well with myriad controls for transport, cues, EQs, stems, and much more, all with different layers and the correct LED feedback. No custom mapping required. What's happening here explains why the USB-C power and data protocol is slightly different on the K3. The unit now presents a dedicated device ID. Software can see it as a specific K3 device, not just a generic MIDI controller, which means apps like Virtual DJ can address it like any other controller in its mapping database without any user intervention, and they can do this for multiple K3s at once. At the time of making this video, I think Virtual DJ is the only software currently leveraging the K3 in this way, but I've been told there are more platforms on the way. Traktor users will already be served by Alan and Heath with a dedicated TSI file for the K3, which is coming very soon, but I'm fully on Algorithm's case to push them to get a mapping done for DJ Pro ASAP, because for me, the K3 could be the perfect add-on or even main controller for that software, especially as it works on iOS. And if they do release that mapping, well, I'll probably be buying a K3 straight away, because I really do like the design, the form factor, the build, and the feel of the controls. But for me, life is too short to spend days or even weeks perfecting a custom mapping, and so having it be completely plug and play with my software of choice elevates the whole product massively for me. I could use it as an add-on controller with DVS, or even as my main controller alongside a mixer like the 24C. A mixer, a controller, and an iPad all comfortably fitting in one small bag sounds like a killer combo to me. So there you go, my thoughts on the Xone 24C and the K3. Starting with the mixer, quite simply, I love it. The 23 and 23C stuck around for so long because they fulfilled a demand for a high-quality analog mixer with great sound, which didn't break the bank, and the new ones serve that purpose equally well. In my opinion, most DJs would be best advised to skip the 24 and go for the 24C instead. The price difference isn't huge, and even if you're a purely vinyl or standalone DJ, having the fantastic audio interface in there opens up the ability to do zero fuss recording or streaming. But if you are a software DJ, well, that interface is pretty killer, and the USB hub is a great addition. The K3 is an interesting one for me because I've always discounted the K-series controllers out of hand in the past. Setting them up just seemed like far too much work, and that was my initial reaction with the K3, until I realised that Alan and Heath are actually working behind the scenes with software developers to make it plug and play. Based on my experience with the Virtual DJ mapping, I can absolutely see myself picking up a K3 to use with DJ Pro in the future, which honestly is something I'm surprised to hear myself saying. Let me know your thoughts on the 24C and the K3 in the comments, and also let's talk about MIDI mapping. I used to be a real devotee of mapping or remapping all of my kit, but in recent years I've generally just remapped a few specific controls on mixers and controllers to put my favourite functions in the place that I want them to be. So let me know in the comments, do you ever get into MIDI mapping your hardware, or do you like to keep things entirely plug and play? And if you do map stuff, what kind of features do you focus on? As always, sound off down below. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Beatsource Tech. If you liked it, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. All the links are down in the description. I'll see you next time.